Welcome to another FPL video looking ahead to Game Week 18. This is going to be my team selection video. I'm going to provide a recap of Game Week 17 and see how that went, and then look ahead to the upcoming game week and all of the postponements and what we can do to solve these issues. So let's get straight into the video. Which other place to start than talk about the games that were postponed? So for Game Week 17, we had Brentford versus Manchester United. That was called off. And then we had a few other games, including Burnley against Watford and then Leicester against Tottenham. So all of those games were called off. That kind of depleted my squad. I was still lucky enough to field an 11, but as you can see, a bit of misfortune in certain positions. I'll be talking about that. And one of the transfers I didn't make ended up costing me because I could have gained actually probably around 12 points. I'll be talking about that very soon. And then looking ahead to Game Week 18, 5 games have already been postponed. So Manchester United once again, their game is called off against Brighton. Southampton versus Brentford, so another game for Brentford that is called off. Watford against Palace. Watford once again having so many issues and they're not able to field a team there. Then we have West Ham against Norwich, another game that we were targeting with Bowen, Antonio and other West Ham assets, and Everton versus Leicester. So as you can see, certain teams like Leicester, Watford, Manchester United and Brentford, that's back-to-back games that have been postponed for them. And as for Spurs, I know they haven't got a game called off yet anyway this weekend, but they have so many games that have yet to be played, with Burnley and a few others like Leicester. So they are a few games behind, and this is absolute chaos at the moment. So it's very important to just identify which games are likely to go ahead, or at least more likely to go ahead, and then build our teams accordingly. And that's why I'll be talking about my transfer plans towards the end of this video. I'll be talking about why a certain player who I'd actually want to keep ideally might have to make way, and I have to also bear in mind who is actually going to play in Game Week 18 potentially or not. But let's look ahead to Game Week 17 first, talk about my performance, and then we'll go on to Game Week 18 and all of that good stuff. So Ramsdale in goal, a clean sheet against West Ham. I'm very surprised. I thought West Ham would be much better. I have to say Arsenal dominated the game and they could have scored even more goals. West Ham were down to 10 men. And I just have to say Arsenal were very good on the day. They still lack that cutting edge up front, but defensively still solid. And Ramsdale is just, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in the game. He did get a yellow card, so down to 5 points. But if it wasn't for that, you never know. He could have been in amongst the bonus points, and not too many saves for him, which is quite surprising considering, the caliber of West Ham and their attacking players. But I have to say, Tierney's looking fantastic now. I was wrong about him. I'm still a bit doubtful about his injury record, but Tierney has been fantastic in the last few game weeks, and he would be a worthwhile acquisition. You could even double up with him and Ramsdale, but I'm still a bit cautious about going for that Arsenal double up in defence. But speaking about double ups in defence, James and Alonso, they have come good with a bit of fortune here because Alonso got substituted off around the 64th minute mark for Saul. And that just played into my hands because Chelsea ended up losing the clean sheet. But Alonso, because he came off so early, he was able to bank that clean sheet and those points. And I'm very happy with that. And Reece James got bonus points and also got the assist. So the double up with Chelsea finally working again. But Chelsea, very, very fragile at the moment, facing a depleted Everton side, and they just weren't able to break them down despite having so many chances. So Chelsea aren't looking too good overall. I'm still thinking about moving away from the double up, but because I have so many other issues with my squad and the postponements, I have to focus on them first, so I'm not able to get to this right now. And any players you can actually field, I think, are just a bonus, and you probably want to look at those that you can't play in a certain game week, such as those 5 games in Game Week 18 which are called off, and those players will be blanking. Then we have Trent, and that's once again another attacking return. Newcastle scored very early on, and it was just one of those game weeks, wasn't it? John Joe Shelvey scoring, all your Liverpool players blanking, but it all changed very quickly. Liverpool made a comeback, and Trent scored that 3rd goal, which is a very well taken goal. Got the full bonus points, and that's the thing with Trent. If he gets a clean sheet or any attacking returns, he has a very good chance of getting 2 or 3 bonus points. So he is just a great asset right now. Someone who isn't such a great asset is Livramento. 0 points. He came off my bench, and unfortunately, he just came on to pretty much not change the score at all. And I believe he's got like 1 point in the last 5 games or so, which is pretty poor, kind of mirroring what Reece James was doing before Game Week 17. But Livramento has been just horrid, really, and was such a consistent asset at the beginning of the season, but Southampton just haven't got going recently in terms of their defence, and it is a cause for concern, but once again, I've got other issues to deal with, but Livramento could be someone on the chopping block very soon. I mean, he technically already is, but you've got to prioritise these transfers. That's very important. And then we have Captain Mo Salah. Him and Trent are just the most reliable captaincy options at the moment, but Salah only blanked once this season, insane form, and yeah, I'm very happy with him. I can't really complain. It's just a shield, really, but I am thinking of maybe deviating away from the Salah captaincy at times and maybe going for Trent, who is just, at the moment, probably one of the best assets in the entire game. Then we have Conor Gallagher, 2 points, did blank, and Palace were disappointing this time round, but I do expect this inconsistency not only from the Eagles, but also Conor Gallagher, and I'm realistic with my expectations in terms of Gallagher. I don't want to obviously expect consistent returns, but when he does, he can haul really big, and that's what I like about having Gallagher, but he actually might be on the chopping block. Then we have Bernardo Silva, had a few niggles and a muscle injury. That's why he came off at halftime as a precaution, and I think if he had stayed on, he probably would have gotten some points. I would have been very surprised if he didn't. Had a very good chance in the opening stages of the game. He didn't take it, but Bernardo Silva is still a really good asset. I know some people will be kind of doing this merry-go-round between Gundogan, maybe even Sterling, Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden. I don't think it's worth it. You pick one and you stick to it, but I am looking to add another Man City midfielder to my ranks. I'll be talking about the pros and cons about that very soon. And then Jota scored, a bit fortunate with the goal, with the whole circumstances surrounding that. But yeah, that's the thing with Jota. And I think having him is the key difference in terms of gaining something from Liverpool, tripling up on Liverpool. And I think only 15% of FPL managers own that triple up of Trent, Salah and Jota. So that is a nice kind of differential there, despite the fact that most people do own Salah and also the duo of Trent and the Egyptian. And then we have Douglas Luiz, came on for 3 points. I'll take that at this week. You know, any sort of points like that is more than welcome, to be honest. I mean, compare that to Livramento, who blanked. But Douglas Luiz could be very important in Game Week 18, and I've got to recognise that. And I'm not in an ideal position heading into Game Week 18, so I need to have anyone that can actually play and do all right, even if it's just 2 to 3 points. So I was down to one attacker, Mikel Antonio. He blanked once again, and patience is wearing out, of course. I've been talking about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. The case, you know, it remains the same, but even worse now. And I'll maybe give him a chance. The problem is he does blank in Game Week 18 against Norwich, so there are actually arguments to selling Antonio. I don't think he's a hold anymore, really, if I'm being completely honest. You can always get him back if he starts to show some improvement in the underlying numbers or a bit of form, but he's definitely not a hold for me or a buy. And right now, he's just there because I have other players to deal with, and I'll be talking about that very soon in my team selection. He might actually live to fight another day, but really, in any normal circumstances, maybe that wouldn't be the case. Looking at my bench, Foster, I mean, this actually could be a problem as well. I could be down to, you know, 0 keepers, really, if Arsenal, you know, any games that they play in the future are called off. So having 2 goalkeepers, if possible, is definitely ideal. Having as much squad depth as possible, 15 players essentially, who can all play and do well. You're going to have bench points from time to time, but it's better than not having those players at all, because sometimes you're just going to need it, especially during this Christmas period where everything is hectic and so many games are being postponed. Dennis, you know, out of nowhere, pretty much on the day, it was revealed that Watford have a lot of COVID cases and the game against Burnley got called off. Then Jamie Vardy on the same day, that game got called off too, and Cancelo was suspended, but I'm happy to count on him now heading into Game Week 18. If that game goes ahead against Newcastle, I think he could do extremely well. So if it wasn't for all the postponements, I'd be very happy with my squad. Just a few, you know, things to settle, such as maybe one of the Chelsea defenders, Livramento, Antonio, and possibly one of my midfielders. But other than that, I'm very happy with it. But that's not the case. We have those postponements, so let's see how we deal with them and how we're lining up as a result. As you can see, we are down to 9 men. All of my strikers don't have a fixture this game week. I am able to field 4 defenders, 4 midfielders and a goalkeeper, but I need to make some transfers, especially up front. But there might be a change in midfield or defence, and I encourage all of you to leave down your suggestions in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. It's greatly appreciated. And yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how we all deal with this. I am lucky enough to have 2 free transfers and 0.9 million in the bank to deal with these problems. But ultimately, you look at this and you need to see a cash cow. You need someone who can give you those funds to greatly improve your squad. And it's not going to be Salah, is it? So I look at Jamie Vardy. He's the most expensive. He's not even that nailed in the Leicester team anymore. He's going to occasionally be benched by Daka and other strikers like Iheanacho. So the way I see it is Jamie Vardy has to go, and I also need a striker. So it just makes complete sense to get rid of him. And also the fixtures are pretty poor now for the Foxes. So Vardy is going to go. And then it's a question of, do I replace Livramento for another defender, or do I maybe change one of my midfielders or another striker? So quite a lot to ponder there. I'll be talking about that very soon in my transfer section. But let's actually talk about those who will be playing before talking about those who won't and what I'll do about them. So Ramsdale in goal against Leeds, and I have to say that Marcelo Bielsa's men are in a bit of a precarious situation. I think they're down to 11 available players, and that includes 2 goalkeepers. So they are being stretched thin to the bone. And I mean, it's not surprised really that they lost in the manner in which they did against Man City. They've been very unfortunate all season, Leeds, I have to say. Even though they have been poor, especially defensively, you have to feel a bit of sympathy for them because they've just been ravaged by injuries and now COVID cases all season. So it is a bit of a shame. Arsenal are in a good position to win this, but I look at it at the same time and think if Leeds get any more COVID cases, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Leeds versus Arsenal was called off. So I have to say, from those fixtures that still remain, Leeds versus Arsenal fills me with the least confidence of going ahead. But, you know, it's just kind of, maybe I'm being too cynical, but you also have to think about these things because sometimes being proactive is better than just being reactive. And, well, actually, I say sometimes, it always is. So you have to think about these situations, what could happen. But that's kind of a gut feeling I have. Hopefully I'm wrong, and all of these games that are still going ahead do in fact go ahead. But just bear in mind, it might not be plain sailing, and it just hasn't been anyway this month. Then we look at the defence. Double Chelsea against Wolves, not ideal. I probably would have been looking to downgrade Alonso and make moves elsewhere at this point. But once again, I don't think that is the right thing to do with all the other problems I have in my squad. I don't think it makes any sense at all to get rid of any of these players that actually have a fixture just to get someone else in because I'm not going to be adding to my numbers, and I think it just limits my ceiling for Game Week 18. So even Douglas Luiz, that applies to him as well. Why get rid of him when he actually has a fixture and I can use my 2 free transfers to build an 11 on paper anyway to play in Game Week 18. But James and Alonso could do alright. Wolves haven't been particularly impressive recently, but they're still ticking along nicely and doing alright during some of their tougher fixtures. They beat Brighton and they did relatively well against Liverpool and Man City. Very unfortunate not to come away from those matches with something, especially the Liverpool game. So we'll just wait and see. I don't think it'll be easy for Chelsea. They've been struggling a lot and they now have some COVID cases. I think they've actually got a few more yesterday, so around the time that they did play Everton, and also Man United. So there's still more COVID cases coming, and I do suspect there might be another postponement or two. But as things stand, Chelsea versus Wolves will go ahead, and I think that is not so bad of a fixture, but at the same time, it's not ideal. And then we look at Trent Alexander-Arnold away to Tottenham. Now, that isn't going to be easy. Tottenham already have so many games that they haven't played yet. So that's going to be interesting. If this game is also called off, then we're looking at Spurs being 4 games behind at least, which is absolutely crazy when you put it like that. But Jurgen Klopp did say, well, he urged the Premier League to continue, which was the complete opposite to Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, who said that all the games for the weekend should be postponed. So we're going to have different opinions on this, and that might also play a part in the whole saga. But Trent away to Tottenham, I think, is a decent fixture. Not the best, though, especially with Antonio Conte, and they have shored things up at the back. But I still expect Liverpool to break them down at least a few times because they are just probably the best attacking team in the league along with Man City. And defensively, I think Liverpool can cope with what Spurs have to offer. An off-form Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, who has been decent, especially recently. But I just think that Liverpool can get the clean sheet and also some attacking returns for Trent. Then we have Joao Cancelo away to Newcastle. I'm actually very tempted to give him the armband, but I do think Newcastle can score just like they did at Anfield. They have that attacking quality at times, especially through players like Callum Wilson and all of that. But yeah, you have to say Man City are probably the favourites this week to keep a clean sheet. It makes complete sense, especially with Liverpool and Chelsea having not so great fixtures. So I think City are the odds-on favourite to keep a clean sheet, and João Cancelo can definitely get some attacking returns as well. So I am tempted to actually give him the armband this week, but of course that could always backfire. Bernardo Silva, I am quietly confident he will be fit enough to play Newcastle, but even if he is, will he actually start? Pep Guardiola might take the same approach which caused them to take him off at half-time to actually put him on the bench or not make him feature at all against Newcastle, and I could be down to 8 men at this point. But I don't think it makes sense to get rid of Bernardo for Foden at this stage, because looking at my team, I need to deal with my strikers and then those on my bench, and try to bolster up my squad. So Bernardo Silva will be staying. I am confident he will feature this weekend, but there is a chance that he doesn't. Then the double Liverpool attack, Jota and Salah, very happy with it. It's paying dividends for me, so I don't really see any need to change it, despite the fact that Mason Mount is looking really good, Phil Foden, and a few others that I don't have. Jared Bowen is still a great asset, but of course he is missing Game Week 18, so there are still different midfielders to consider, but I'm very happy with Jota and Salah. I mean, don't get rid of Salah really at this stage. And then Douglas Luiz, you know what, I'm fine with him starting. I don't really expect anything. He could get an assist or something like that. If he does, then even better. But really what I'm expecting from him is 2 to 3 points. I'll take that and move on with the rest of my week. And then, yeah, as you can see, the rest of my players, Antonio, Dennis, Foster, Gallagher, Livramento and Vardy, all blanking. I mean, Foster's injured regardless, but all of them are blanking because their games have been postponed. So what am I going to do with my transfers to bolster my squad and have an 11 to play in Game Week 18? Well, let's find out right now. As I alluded to earlier, Jamie Vardy has to be the cash cow. It just makes complete sense to get rid of him and then make some moves. Now, I talked about this in my stream. I could have done Vardy to Watkins in Game Week 17. I actually would have made 9 more points from it because Livramento was first on my bench. He would have come on. I would have lost out on the 3 points I gained from Douglas Luiz coming on, and instead I would have had Watkins and those extra points that he got. So I actually would have earned 9 more points overall at least. But in the end, very happy to make the transfer now and admit the wrongs potentially that I did. The reason why I decided to hold that transfer is because I kind of feared more cancellations happening, and I wanted to have 2 free transfers to deal with this and have the flexibility. Aston Villa also had some COVID cases, so I was still a bit skeptical about whether they could actually have their matches go ahead. So I thought actually holding the transfer and having 2 available in Game Week 18 was the best course of action. And despite missing out on quite a few points from Watkins, I have to say I still believe I made the right choice, because what if Watkins actually ended up missing out one of these games? He still can at the weekend. And just having this flexibility, having 2 free transfers is actually the right thing to do, and it gives me more options, and I don't just have to go for Watkins. He's not the only striker who exists right now, despite what some people may lead you to believe, and I'm still looking to get him in for Jamie Vardy. And what would the other transfer be? Phil Foden for Conor Gallagher. Now, I'll be honest, ideally I don't want to get rid of Douglas Luiz and have Phil Foden, and even though I'm not a big fan of having 8 attackers, I think it's just the right thing to do at this moment in time. The reason why I'm not doing that and I'm getting rid of Gallagher instead is because he blanks in Game Week 18, whilst Douglas Luiz actually has a chance of playing this week against Burnley at the weekend. So it just makes complete sense to not get rid of someone who's actually playing and instead get rid of someone who's blanking, and then maybe in the coming weeks I can get Conor Gallagher back in for Douglas Luiz and just have such a heavy squad where anyone can play really, and I'm going to inevitably have bench points. But you have to take it on the chin. I think it's just the right thing to do, and I'd rather have bench points than just no points at all really. That's the way I'm looking at it. Let me know what you think, like I asked before. I'd really appreciate your suggestions and ideas. But right now, I think that just makes complete sense. Keeping Douglas Luiz, who has a fixture, getting rid of Conor Gallagher instead. I do realise Livramento is probably a big weakness in my squad right now, and Southampton just aren't filling me with confidence defensively, and their fixtures aren't great regardless. But he's another one to be on the chopping block in the coming weeks. Of course, I'd love to have Tierney, and I wouldn't actually be able to afford these 2 moves you can see and have Tierney in for Livramento, also have Gallagher in for Douglas Luiz. That would probably require a downgrade from Alonso or someone else. So I've got to think about these things, but ultimately I think Foden coming in against Newcastle looks really good. But then looking at the cons of that, having a triple up on a team like Man City, whilst that's not the worst idea in the world, not only is there Pep Roulette, but there's also what if a Man City game gets cancelled and I have 3 players taken away. The same goes with Liverpool. So I would suggest, if possible, try to steer clear from triple ups in certain teams. Probably go for 1 or 2. Maybe a triple up in Liverpool makes complete sense. I mean, when they do play, they are fantastic. But try not to have too many triple ups in your team. And if I do end up going for the City triple up, that's 2 triple ups that I do have in the end. So that's not really the ideal scenario either. Then you could say, well, why not go for Mason Mount? Because I'd still have a triple up there, but instead with Chelsea, because I already have 2 defenders. So as you can see, I'm in a bit of a predicament. The other midfielder I would consider is Jarrod Bowen, but of course, West Ham blank against Norwich in Game Week 18. So once again, I encourage all of you to leave down your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember, I have 2 free transfers and 0.9 million in the bank. And thank you very much to everyone who's been watching. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. And I have to say, for Game Week 17, I'm happy in the end how it turned out. The games on the Thursday definitely saved me, because before that, I was struggling to even be in the double-digit marks. But those 5 players I had left, the triple up in Liverpool and the 2 Chelsea defenders, helped me massively. I was in the end rather fortunate with everything, but still not ideal. You know, I missed out on Watkins' points, and I wanted to make other transfers heading into this Christmas period, but you've got to adapt. And I already said this before, I'm not a big fan of 8 attackers, but right now I think that is the best course of action, looking at how everything is going. If you haven't already, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's Dylan_RCM. You can also follow me on Discord. Join the link is in the description below, and also the league. So everything is down there in the description. Thank you very much to everyone. Good luck with the Game Week 18. I think we're going to need it, and enjoy the football if we do get any. Hopefully we do, and we can just enjoy the festive period, obviously. So enjoy your times with your family and friends, and I'll see you next time.